As we, go over the season that was here for the Boston Red Sox, a season that did show some real promise, certainly in June and July of this summer. And then after the All-Star break, things definitely fell apart in a way that could not be fixed. A 500 team, almost from beginning to end with a couple of gaps there, but really a team that could not figure out how to get out of its own way, a team that may or may not have invested enough into its roster, and a team that seems to be building for the future. And that's the headline here from the Red Sox, from their manager, from their president of baseball operations. I'm sure we're going to hear something from Sam Kennedy, maybe Warner, maybe even John Henry. Probably not John Henry, but definitely the other guys. Maybe Theo says something.
I feel like John Henry, we might get one of those stories with Sean McAdam or somebody where there's a couple emailed responses to questions or whatever. I feel like we'll get a comment from him at
Linda, take a letter.
Take a memo.
That's the way that it ended. It was a disappointing season, I think. I know, Andy, you were a lot more optimistic about this team and this season and what this season produced than I am. But let's start with the review of basically what this season was. It was a season that started off with very low expectations, and I think that's important when you talk about this Red Sox season to remember. Coming into this, no one really thought they would be competing for much. No one thought they'd be in the race. It was ugly finish last year, and they didn't do a lot to really upgrade the roster. We thought some of the young players would get better, and they did. Certainly Jarren Duran did. I think that Tristan Casas had that injury and everything, but you know that he's someone that's going to continue to develop and get better. Your pitching staff, a lot of those young guys got better and gave you a lot this year, but it just ended up not being enough. And even when they were playing at their best, and I'm talking about from June 15th on, when they went on that long win streak, they had a short losing streak in the middle of it, but really were dynamite for about a month's time, maybe a little more than that. And it seemed like this was going to be, and you just heard Alex Cora reference it, it sounded like this was going to be a team that could compete, a team that was in playoff position, in the playoff hunt, a team that was right there with Kansas City, right there with Detroit, was getting close to the Yankees and the Orioles. There was a point where they were only like 4 or 5 games back in the division this year. So it wasn't all bad. I mean, to be sure, it wasn't all bad. There were some highs with this team and then basically lows for the entire second half.
We blew it.
I agree, Alex. I mean, this was...
you?
I do. I think that they did blow it. I think that there was a way that they could have maintained not exactly the level of play that you had there before the break, but something close to it, and they just didn't want to. They didn't want to commit to it. They thought Danny Jansen and James Paxton and all that. I blame Breslow for that, and to a lesser extent. I'd say, Alex Cora, too. I think that everybody has to take some ownership of this. Everybody has to take some ownership of the fact that whether it's Chaim Bloom or Craig Breslow, this team now, for however many years in a row, continues to fall apart in the second half.
So I think that's a big factor here, is the 3 years of falling apart, which both Alex Cora and Craig Breslow have acknowledged that they're looking into, trying to figure out. We talked to Cora about it probably a month ago, one of our first shows probably, and I think that matters, and that's a factor in the way we feel about this season. I also think it's, so you blew it, but you also kind of overachieved in a way, and I just wonder, if you flipped your all-star pre-All-Star break run of success and move that to the end of the season right now. And then they came up short. Same thing happened. You finish, whatever they are, 80 and 80 whatever.
Yep.
So wouldn't it feel different? Even though it's the same result and it's the same record, but the order of operations changes. They created expectations in the middle of the year that then they kind of just regress to where people expected them to be anyway, right?
It would definitely feel different. 100% it would feel different.
But now you have the manager saying we blew it.
You blew it!
Yeah.
Would he be saying we blew it if the losing had come 3 months ago? And then you come up short? Would he say we blew it in the middle of the season? We dug a hole we couldn't get out of. I just wonder.
Dug a hole we couldn't get out of, I think, is a good way to put it. That's not the same as blowing it. I mean, when I think of those terms, we're splitting hairs here, but I think that's something we would have been talking about and that you would have been able to honestly look back at.
Would it have been better?
I think it would have been better.
Because of the last couple of years of fading in August and September, if you at least flipped it, even if you get to the same spot. Let's just even pretend
this would have been more exciting.
Yes.
These months here would have been more exciting, which I think would have been better.
But bad in the summer.
Bad in the summer, sure. And that may have gotten people to tune out. But once you start getting close, and I mean, how close are we talking here? Like where they are now? Like I don't know about
exact same, if you had gotten to the exact same spot, but you started in last place.
Okay.
And you were 10 games out of the wild card, and then you made a run, and everybody's like, wait, you're 7? You're 6? You're 5? You get to 4? Like, I think that would have been appreciated, and that would have maybe built some momentum heading into the offseason. Forget about what they're saying, right? Like, it would have been, when in reality, it's the exact same performance, just kind of jumbled up. You ever play Words with Friends and you press that button and it mixes your letters up in a different order so you can see them differently?
Yes.
That's what this season could have been.
Yeah.
You would be like, oh my God, there was a good season there. Instead, people like you people, think it was a terrible season. And most people...
But that didn't happen, Andy.
No, I know, but I'm just saying. But it's the same season.
No, it isn't. What? It's not the same season. They fell apart in the second half like they've done for 3 straight years. That's not the same as what you just said.
Right,
what you just said would have been better.
Who's they that fell apart?
The Red Sox.
No, but which part? Because that's the other issue. I listened to Craig Breslow this morning talk about, he kind of blamed it all on the bullpen.
It was bullpen was part of it, but the offense fell apart in the second half right after the All-Star break. The offense was very poor. I think that you did get a stretch. I forget exactly when it was, but there was a stretch of weaker starting pitching. That's when Houck's ERA went up.
That's why I think they stink. Nothing was consistent. They didn't do now. They started consistently. We talked about that with Corey yesterday. 3 guys with 30 starts, a fourth with 25.
And they were consistently 500 through most of the first half of the season until the last month or so.
But they didn't do anything. They never married up consistently good baseball. It was like, we're going to be carried by our pitching. Nah, we'll be carried by our hitting, right? And the defense was either bad or good enough.
Defense was bad.
I don't know. Like, that was never great.
Ultimately, I was looking at the team numbers. It was not good this year.
But to me, that's why they lost. I don't know that I think they played to who they are, quite honestly. I think you got to the right point of who you are. You don't have an ace. You got some young guys you're trying to develop into becoming, hopefully not aces, because hopefully the ace comes from outside the organization. And then you go, that Tanner Houck's a really good 2-starter.
Right.
And all of that falls into place.
Which they didn't do any of that, by the way.
Oh, no, they didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't. But I don't.
Before the year or at the trade deadline.
I would disagree with Cora. I don't think they blew it. I think they kind of performed to who they are. They're a developing young baseball team who found some good, but also had to acknowledge the bad and the limitations.
But they are who we thought they were.
Exactly.
Thank you, Dennis.
They were 53-43. 10 games over 500 going into the second half. They are now currently 1 game over 500. You can do the math on your own time here. I don't know what they're going to finish as, but that is not – I look at that in the second half, and I can't look at that and say that's performing to what we thought. That was to get back down to that level.
So you hammered the over before the season.
I didn't touch this team.
Because, I mean, if you thought they were much better, I bet at 79.5 I took the under. They're at 80 wins. I lose by a half a game, and that might be it. So
I thought they'd be worse than this. My expectations for them were that they would be worse.
So they overachieved?
Not really. I don't think so. I think that they overachieved to my preseason expectations.
Yeah.
But then once the season started and you saw that they were at least a 500 team, I mean, you could say they overachieved in the first May and April. I mean, that was when it seemed like, okay, they're better than I thought they would be. So fine. If they overachieved for that, for my preseason expectation, then fine. But after being a 500 team for 2.5 months, they showed that there could be something more than that. And then they fell apart. I mean, you can't deny that they fell apart in the second half.
They didn't play well, but I didn't expect them to play well in the totality of the season. So they overachieved and then they fell apart. I guess you can have both of those in one long baseball season. That's the reality. It's 162.
Sure.
How many times have we heard him talk about all these young guys figuring out how long the season is? I listened to Bradfo yesterday do his, what's it called, the 2-minute grill?
Yes.
Presented by McFarland, our friends over there. And Rafaela was like, this is long. You play in the minor leagues, but this is different up here. This is long. And that is the reality. They overachieved for a while, then they underachieved, and guess what that means? They achieved about what they should have achieved this year because Vegas puts them at 79.5, they're at 80. So the expectations were actually pretty, the exterior, because that's where he made the divide.
Right, but the expectations changed.
Outside. See, mine didn't. I told you this 3 months ago.
When they were 10 games over 500, your expectation didn't change?
We could probably find the tapes when I filled in with you and Jones,
good, fine.
and I said, it's not sustainable. You're not this good. You're not going to keep doing this.
You thought they were going to fall back down to 500?
Yes, I thought they'd regress.
If they had played 500 ball from then on out, they would still be 10 games over 500.
I thought they would regress. I didn't think they were that good. I didn't think you could lean on Tanner Houck to be this dominant ace with a 1.1 ERA or whatever the hell it was. Like, I thought there were. Now, I think, wrong on Duran. He continued it at a pretty high pace.
Still was good, yes.
But, no, I thought the team would go back because to me, that's the great challenge of putting a team together that has no known commodities. You really don't have anybody to lean on. And you have Devers.
He's a commodity.
He's your guy. But did he have a great year?